In this tutorial, we're going to have a look at a couple of the other tools in the tools palette. Let's start off with the reflect tool. To start with, we're going to create a shape. So I'm going to start with a triangle shape, and I'm going to increase the size of the stroke so that you can see clearly what's happening. I'm also going to change the fill color. To do a reflection, select the shape and then select the reflect tool. Choose the first point about which you're going to reflect. So in my case, I want to put the reflection over here. And then choose the second point of reflection. Now, before you click on the screen, hit Alt on the keyboard and you'll notice that the double-headed arrow pops up. That means that it will create a copy of whatever it is that you're trying to reflect. So Alt is the copy, and then if I hold Shift, it will constrain the copy to 180 degrees. So that's the reflect tool. You can also scale objects. So double click the scale tool and the scale dialog box opens. You can create a uniform or non-uniform scale. Hit preview, and you can also create a copy of the object as you're scaling it. So that's the copied object. A couple of other tools that you may be interested to use. These ones here. These tools are quite nice to play with. They do different things. So you've got the Twirl tool. You've got the bloat tool, which makes things sort of bloat, makes them kind of chubby, and scallop tool, etc. So each of these tools has its own set of variables. Double click on the tool that you want to change, and you can make it bigger, smaller, change the angle. It's always a good idea to see the brush size that you're working with as well, and hit OK when you're ready. Now, just because you know how to use these sets of tools, it doesn't mean you should be using them. Very often when I show students these, they get all excited, and then I start seeing puckers and twirls everywhere. So just be careful with using that particular tool. You've also got free transform. Whoops, there we go. The free transform tool, which is similar to the free transform in Photoshop that you're familiar with. Shape builder tool. I'll just delete these ones here. So if I have two shapes, let me change the color of that, and I'll create another shape. Just tear out that palette. If I create a star, for instance, maybe make it pink. If I select both shapes, so shift click two shapes and choose the shape builder tool, notice that when I place my cursor, it shows kind of like a checkerboard underneath. If I click from right into the left shape builder, what it does is it eliminates the paths in between the two shapes and assumes that I want to create a complete shape. Likewise, if I draw from left to right, the same thing happens. So it is a good tool if you want to try and delete some of these paths between two shapes quite quickly and easily, like so. Just delete that shape. The perspective grid tool, as soon as you click on that, you end up with a perspective grid box, which is really handy if you're doing a layout that requires the correct perspective. You can modify the vanishing points, the size of the grid that you're working on, and where you want your planes to be located. Now, often once you get on the perspective grid, it's very hard to work out how to hide it. So up here you've got a new little insignia that you probably haven't seen before. If you hover your mouse over the X, there it is, and click that, it hides the perspective grid. Okay, so the other way of doing it, whoops, if you've got your perspective grid showing, is go into View, Perspective Grid, and Hide Grid.